Welcome into the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. The New Orleans Pelicans podcast starts right now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast, official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. Gus Kattengell, Jim Eichenhofer with you yet again as the Pels play the fourth game of a four-game homestand against the Cleveland Cavaliers, undefeated Cavaliers, 8-0. Pelicans, well, they did not get a win since we last chatted with you as they go down to the Trailblazers 118-100. Lost on Sunday to the Hawks 126-111. So two straight defeats there. Jim, first and foremost, I think this soundbite from head coach Willie Green probably explains why the team is on a current two-game losing streak.
It's difficult to lose a game. It's frustrating for, just being in the moment. But I speak for all of us. We're proud of the way our guys have stepped up and they go out and compete. And even through the losses, there's valuable lessons for us that will help us as we move forward and as we get whole. But right now, this is kind of where we are. We kind of ran out of steam last, 5 to 7 minutes of the game. There's two games in a row, and, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, the talent gap over 48 minutes, I think, sometimes becomes evident. I mean, high school basketball, you're playing 32 minutes. College, you're playing 40. I feel like there's kind of an attrition that happens in the NBA just because the game is so long. You're also dealing with a 24-second shot clock, so there's a million more possessions than there are in other levels of basketball. And I do think that sometimes can catch up to you. I mean, we saw with Portland and Atlanta too, obviously, but Portland in the fourth quarter, guys like Anthony Simons and Delano Banton comes in after not playing at all in the first three quarters and goes off.
Yes.
I mean, they just had guys that in the fourth quarter just kind of took over the game and just seized it for them. And so, the Pelicans were up 3 going into the fourth quarter, but, just like Willie used the words, ran out of steam, I think, or ran out of gas. And it did seem like that was the case as well as in the Atlanta game where it was like, you started seeing some mistakes that you hadn't seen earlier in the game.
Of course, it doesn't help that Zion didn't play in those two games that the team has lost here as well. So they won on Friday, doesn't play on Sunday and Monday. Some soreness. And look, probably the right thing for the team to do with Jordan Hawkins to rest him. He was gutting through the games on Friday and Saturday, on Sunday rather. So to your point, hopefully get some healthy bodies here. Look, It does allow for players to get an opportunity, though. And one of the players we'll be talking to with Wes Johnson, our guest today, is Brandon Boston. And he's taken advantage of his opportunity. Boston, with a solid performance the last couple of games, 14, 14, and 20, his 3 totals there. Brandon Ingram had this to say about the chance that Boston's getting.
No, actually. I watched him a little bit in high school, a little bit in college, and I just thought he never got the opportunity to play. And he's a 5-star guy, so, he got something in his bag that he's ready to unleash, and he's been doing it the last 2 games.
Head coach Willie Green.
I see his hunger to prove to everybody that, he belongs in this league, and we're grateful to be able to be the team that can give him an opportunity. We don't like the circumstances, always with guys being out, but, there's some good that'll come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, the consistency that he's shown has been great. I mean, obviously these are not ideal circumstances. We talked about before, too, that based on the schedule, the practice dates haven't really been there either. So, I mean, to be able to just jump into action and play the way he has been a huge boost and extremely valuable. So, by the way, too, I think it's always interesting to me to think about sometimes of how small the basketball world is, because at Saturday's practice, I think the clip that you played of Brandon Ingram might have been the question I asked him about what he's seen from Brandon Boston so far. And when he started talking so knowledgeably about Brandon Boston's high school career and stuff like that, I thought my first thing that came to mind was like, okay, so Ingram played in LA, and was there some connection there with the Clippers? But then you realize that really it was just the basketball world, especially with the Instagram clips and the viral videos.
No doubt.
I think the NBA players now are extremely aware of even like the top high school players, even if they're guys that played somewhere that doesn't have anything to do geographically with them. Boston is from the Atlanta area, so there's really no connection other than it seems like somewhere along the way.
When you're a 5-star guy and you play at Kentucky,
right,
people get
find
to know
out
you.
about you.
Exactly,
right.
no doubt.
So, yeah, that was interesting.
All right, so that leads us to where we are tonight. The Cleveland Cavaliers 8-0. Jim, give us expert analysis here. Ready? Why are they undefeated?
I mean, they've been good in pretty much every aspect of the
There you
game.
have it.
They just had two, really close wins actually against the Bucks. You would think, but the way the Milwaukee's played so far, that they would have been able to maybe beat them by a bigger margin. But as I always say, there's no pictures in the standings. The only thing that matters is you won or lost the game. And so now they're 8-0 after those two consecutive wins against them. A couple notes for tonight's game. Max Strus and Dean Wade are both out. Dean Wade actually started every game for the Cavs all season until their last game that he was out due to illness. So he's been a big part of the start that they've gotten off to. Won't play tonight. Neither will Max Strus. And then off the bench, Karis LeVert is questionable with a knee injury. He also is off to a very good start individually and has been pretty instrumental, I think, in the Cavs being undefeated. So not nearly as long of an injury list as what the Pelicans have, but nonetheless, there's a few guys for them the couple guys that are out and another guy that we'll have to find out closer to tip-off if he's going to play tonight.
Yeah, see what takes place. All right, let's have our conversation with Wes Johnson. We'll talk about that connection that he has with Brandon Boston. Also, his thoughts on tonight's game with the Cavaliers coming up now. All right, time now to welcome in our guest for today's podcast, Mr. Wes Johnson, part of the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. I've gotten so much better at saying that. How about you, man? How are you enjoying the TV life, sir? How are you?
It's fun. I'm enjoying it. I know it's new for me, but day by day, I am getting used to it, getting comfortable. So, yeah, everybody asks me, how is it being in front of the camera? Mm-hmm. I'm like, it's an adjustment. But I think I'm managing it pretty well.
Wes, I'm an avid watcher of the pregame and postgame show, even though sometimes it's the next day via DVR. I was wondering, what have you preferred so far in the pre and postgame? Do you prefer being in the studio, or do you prefer being in the Smoothie King Center with like 300 people screaming and yelling behind you?
That is I don't know. It's like a night and day difference.
Yeah.
You can go from nobody there and it's absolute quiet,
right?
And you can go to pandemonium. So, I think it's a teeter-totter going back and forth with in the mood. So if I'm in a calm mood, I prefer the studio.
Yeah.
But like the energy-wise, you can't match that. So it's fun being in both.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like I was going to say, Jim, like when I did a talk show on remote or location at a restaurant or bar, we do watch parties. It's just a different vibe,
Right.
When fans are there, you hear the atmosphere and reaction of the game. And then when we're in here, it's quiet.
Right.
I think one of the things that's been fun to watch from you and to have your input, and look, we're going to ask you specifically today about things from this team's going on that you went through, maybe, whether it's injuries, whether it's adversity early in the season, keeping up hope, or, looking at the bigger picture,
Right.
yet understanding that every game you got to go out there and play, and other guys are stepping up. There's so much, I think, that you have already gone through and seen
Exactly.
that this team's experiencing right now.
Right. Just early on in my career, we had to deal with injuries, deal with different lineups, players coming from the G League, we're getting 10 days, and guys just learning on the fly, flying in just to meet us when we were at different locations. So the team going through this right now is familiar for me, and to see them go through this right now, it's one of the things that happens, and you just roll with it. And you don't want to lose hope. Like you say, you want to look at the bigger picture. And it's just one of those things, day by day, game by game, you're able to like grow as a player, grow as an individual. So when the guys come back, you've been in those situations. So when you're out there on the floor, it's not foreign to you. You're able to produce and know where to be, know how to play when they're out there. So these minutes and the times that they're getting is valuable. It's invaluable for them to be able to say, okay, I played against the best. I've been out there. And then you wanted to be on that stage, and now you're able to do it. Unfortunately, it's at the expense of people being injured, but these are the minutes that you can never take back.
One of the things that people have asked me, including some of the writers who've been here for maybe a handful of years or going back 7-8 years, they asked me, like, has this ever happened before to an NBA team? And unfortunately, I have seen stuff similar to this in New Orleans going back to the previous decade. But, I mean, what are some of the stories that you have from your career that are kind of extreme cases of where you have to deal with stuff that you're just not expecting to have happen to a team?
So right before this mentioning, when I was with the Lakers, we actually played in Cleveland. And injuries, everybody. Kobe, Steve Nash, Jeremy Lin had that stomach bug, and it was going down the list of all the players. So we entered the game with 6 players. Nick six. So Nick messed his knee up, so we're down 5. So this is like second quarter.
Yeah,
so we're down 5 players, and I'm looking like, okay, it's no subs. So for me and everybody else, it's like, 1, he can't take us out, so we can just play how we want to play.
Right.
And 2, this is going to be a long game. Throughout the game, Chris came in fouling out. So he's on the bench, and it's like you said, it was a meme of him literally laying across the bench because nobody was there. Everybody was in the back getting treatment, and nobody was on the bench. So he lays across the bench. He ended up getting fined for that.
By the team?
By the league.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Robert Sacre ended up fouling out. And so we had 4 players. So they were like, okay, we can't play a game 5-on-4. So they allowed him to play. And they said that every time he fouls, regardless if non-shooting or not, it's going to be a tech. So they made a rule up. They had to call in and get a rule made just because, like, hello, like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's incredible.
So I've been a part of that. Some weird instance with players being out. So,
How did the Cavs react to that? Were they saying, like, let's run every time we have the ball and wear these guys out because they don't have any subs? Or like,
we ended up winning the game.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You won the game with 4 players.
Yeah, we won the game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
See?
Yes, we won the game.
You should go. You need to walk over there across the parking lot and be like, guys,
it's doable.
This can happen. We can do this.
Right.
So that's great. That's a great story. That's tremendous. One of the reasons for the timing that we wanted to bring you in today too was that you have a background with Brandon Boston, that you were actually his player development coach with the Clippers. I mean, what was kind of your focus with him? You had him. This is his 4th year, I think, in the NBA. You had him really early while you were there. What were some of the things that you kind of focused on with him that you wanted him to work on?
1, being decisive. That was the main thing. Being decisive, get the ball, make a quick decision. Just with the team that we had, spacing was key. Catching and shooting, just to get him to stick on the floor by doing that. On the defensive end, his footwork, angles, how to close out, knowing his personnel, like paying attention to the schemes that the teams are running, just trying to get him to be a complete basketball player. Without his offensive gifts that he already has, just trying to add more to him to be a professional. So year by year, you saw it growing. But like I was always telling him, you need the opportunity. So that will grow with time when you're able to get out there. So him being able to be here and able to get reps, like quality reps out there now, it's like, okay, that's, like I was saying, it's invaluable for a young player to be able to play. Like, you can do all the reps you want in post-practice, pre-practice, but when you're out there live, that's when you actually be able to grow. So seeing him develop from early on, 19 years old to now, I can see, like, okay, he's going on the right path.
When you mentioned, him being decisive, was it a matter of like just catching the ball, making a quick decision kind of thing, like not holding it, not pounding it? Like, what did you mean by that?
When you get the ball, catch the ball, like a lot of players in the training, they over dribble. I mean, it's natural. Like the training, like they do that. So when you're catching the balls, depending on like the read and react, it happens fast. You're getting the best players in the world running at you, running you off the line. So if you don't catch and shoot it or drive the close out and make the right read after it, it's like, okay, why are you out here? What are you doing when you're out here? So him being very decisive on catching the ball, shooting, catching the ball, driving, catching the ball, passing, that is like a skill in itself, because a lot of people can't think that fast to make the right reads. So if you're making the right reads off a closeout and being able to space the floor, get to space, and give those guys like the B.I.s and the Zions a space to operate, and knowing that I'm spaced, ready to shoot or drive it, like Coach Green is going to be like, okay, we can have him out here now.
Right. And to your point, one thing that's really stood out to me was Brandon Ingram and his start. I'm going to ask you about his start here in a second, but what you just mentioned there, he spoke about specifically the bag that this kid has or the confidence that he has. when you have a player of that caliber with the start that he's having and trusting, and then you're helping him and you're going back and forth, that's something that's not only on video, but other players see, coaches see, opportunity can arise from something like that, right? It's one thing to come out there and get some minutes, knock down a 3 or 2. It's another to be able to work with a player of that caliber. Does that open up a little bit more eyes
For sure.
on other teams that go, hey, man, this guy can work with star caliber players and other players? There's a home for a guy like that.
For sure. Because if you have a player like caliber of Brandon Ingram actually saying that about you, Zion saying he was a certified bucket, giving you these names, that lets you know that they see it. And the Clippers saw it when he was there. They just didn't have the opportunity or the space or the minutes for him. So him being able to put in the work and continue to be in the gym, it's kudos to him to having that work ethic. He could have went south and been like, you know what, like, am I really that good? Yeah, do I belong? But it never was a question in his mind, never came out of his mouth saying that, do I belong here? Mm-hmm. He always thought that. So seeing him be out here and they see the confidence in him, it's letting you know that I should be here and I'm here to stay. So, like, I'm proud to see it. Like, I'm happy for him because nights after nights we've been there all night shooting, all night working, talking him off the ledge, like, just stay with it. It doesn't matter where it is, how it happens. Your number's going to be called, but you have to make the best of it.
I think one of the biggest cases for him as far as this guy should be on an NBA roster somewhere is that, you know, you mentioned that his opportunities with the Clippers were pretty sporadic, but when he did get a chance to play, he had like a 27-point game against Boston. He had a couple other opportunities where he got on the floor and produced. You know, it seemed like he sees the chances to play and did well. But I mean, when you look back at his situation with the Clippers, was it a matter of, I feel like this happens to a lot of guys where, you know, they might be a late first-round pick or second-round pick, but they go to the wrong team in terms of there's so many guys ahead of them.
Right.
And they're also, he went to a team that was in championship mode.
Right.
He didn't go to a team where it was like, you know, we can kind of ease our way into the season. We can develop a bunch of guys. It was like, not only did they have their starters probably set, especially at the wing position, but they also had veteran guys coming off the bench that needed to play as well. So,
for sure.
I mean, was that really just what it boiled down to as far as his time with the Clippers? Was it almost seemed like no matter what he did, he was going to have a hard time getting in the rotation?
Yeah, it was.
Our thanks, as always, to Wes Johnson of the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. You'll get to see him with Andrew Lopez here tonight at home, and then on the road when the Pels take on Orlando on Friday. He will be in studio with Aaron Summers. All right, Jim, it is Wednesday, which means...
All right, y'all, now it's time for Western Conference Wednesday. Mr. Eichenhofer will tell us whose stock is up and whose stock is down. So let's get started. Jim, what is our team to keep an eye on for this week?
You know what's funny, Gus?
What's that?
I didn't know who that voice was the last couple times that you played it after post game, and now I just figured out who that voice is. So that cracks me up.
You know it now,
Yes,
huh?
I do know who that is now.
Okay,
That's so funny to me.
You didn't even know I was playing that.
It also makes sense why she asked me about Western Conference Wednesday, and I was like, why are you asking me about this? I have no idea. I didn't even. But anyways, I digress.
There you go.
The team to watch this week over the next 7 days is actually going to be the Golden State Warriors. And you're not going to believe the schedule that the league has put together for them over the next, 7 nights. Tonight, they're at Boston on ESPN. Not exactly an easy game. Mm-hmm. Friday, they're at Cleveland, which hopefully Cleveland won't be still undefeated on Friday, but that's another story. Sunday, they're at Oklahoma City. And then Tuesday, they host Dallas on TNT, which is going to be the Klay Thompson return to Chase Center game. So Boston, Cleveland, Thunder, Mavericks, that's their next 4 games. So that's why I put them as the team to watch, because I can't imagine a more brutal stretch of games to put together. We complain sometimes about the Pelicans schedule, but man, that is something else. And by the way, the team to watch for last week was the Spurs. They went 2-2, and so I'm going to give them a B+ on the week that they had, because they lost at Oklahoma City, they lost at the Clippers. They had wins at Utah. Their best performance by far was they beat the Timberwolves on the weekend. So they went 2-2. Not bad considering the opposition that they had.
Right.
They're 3-4 now overall, which is a half game ahead of the Pelicans. But they were able to, kind of tread water with the schedule that they had going for them.
So I did quick math there.
Okay.
Going into tonight's action, Cleveland 8-0, Boston 7-1, OKC 7-0, and Dallas is 4-3. That's a combined win-loss record of 26-4.
That's crazy.
The next couple of games that they're playing. So, and Golden State currently 6-1. And I asked you this, I think this week, if they were one of your surprises so far this season, right? I mean, we came into this season, Klay Thompson is Draymond still, good. I mean, Steph put so much effort into the Olympics. What does he have for the regular season? And they're 6-1, man.
And Curry missed 3 of those games as well, which makes it even more interesting and eye-opening. I mean, right now, if you look at the top of the West, OKC 7-0, Phoenix and Golden State are both 6-1. I think everyone thought Oklahoma City was going to be really good this year, and people picked them to be the 1 seed. No one's surprised that Phoenix is 6-1. So among that group, I mean, you have to say Golden State is the team that stands out the most. And speaking of the Warriors, my stock up this week is also the Warriors based on, the week that they just had where they had a bunch of really good wins and a couple of them were Curry-less victories as well. Last Wednesday, they beat the Pelicans by 15. Saturday, they won at Houston in overtime by 6. And then they won at Washington on Monday by 13. So, I mean, they went from they had a good start where it was like, okay, this is encouraging, to now they're near the top of the West standing. So had to go with them for stock up. For stock down, and Gus, this just pains me to say.
Does it?
But the stock down is the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, no.
Yep.
How are you ever going to get through today?
Yeah, it really breaks me up.
What a shame.
Last Wednesday, they lost by 24 at Cleveland in a game that Bronny got to play in front of his hometown crowd.
But he did score.
Then Friday, they won at Toronto. They squeaked out a 6-point win against a team that obviously is not off to a great start. And then they lost by 12 at Detroit on Monday. So,
all right, well, that Piston team is really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're better than people. I will say they're better than people think. But
they have more wins already early on in the season. When did they get to win 3 last year?
Yeah, I think they were 2-29. So what was that, like January? Maybe they got their third win. But stock down Lakers because after the bandwagon was starting to fill up when they started out 3-0, they lost. They also lost a game to the Suns. That was last week. But they're 4-3 now, which is a game and a half ahead of the Pelicans after they started out 3-0, and everybody was starting to mark the championship parade for them. So that's my Western Conference Wednesday wrap up. Looking forward to more weeks of this and enjoying that we have a new narrator for this segment as well.
Yeah, well, there's more to come.
Oh,
there's more to come. There's more to come.
Okay. Now we're talking.
Not this Saturday.
Okay.
Next Saturday.
All right. Okay.
Lakers at the Pels.
Ooh. All right.
Right around the corner.
I will definitely be there for that one.
By the way, the day before that, the Denver Nuggets. Thank you, NBA. We appreciate that. It's really nice. At least it's a home back-to-back, but it's really nice to give us the Nuggets followed by the Lakers. There you go.
I'm never going to pick the Pelicans for this Western Conference Wednesday, but it sounds like maybe they'll be a team to watch that week when they play that schedule.
It'll be interesting. And look, we were talking about it with Wes Johnson as we wrap up here about that. You have not played big teams yet, per se. I know everybody's big in the NBA, but you know what I'm talking about. Jokic is coming. Anthony Davis is coming. LeBron's coming. These are some big players. Tonight, you're going to play a handful of big players, Mobley and Allen, with the Cavaliers. So OKC next week on Wednesday. That's a big player. Now, you're not going to have Banchero on Friday with Orlando. He's out with an injury. But
they're still pretty big, though.
They're starting a stretch here where they're going to face a lot of bigs. And it's one thing to keep an eye on, Jim, because we have watched teams attack the paint against the Pelicans.
Yep.
So that's a storyline going into the next couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, they have to be more competitive game in and game out in points in the paint, and they also have to stay competitive rebounding-wise, which I think in the rebounding category they have done a pretty good job so far, especially given the circumstances of some of the guys that are out.
That's Mr. Jim Eichenhofer. Jim _Eichenhofer is the way to give a follow. And plus, each and every home game, he will be with us at Pelicans OT to give us his 3 things. Jim, thank you, sir. See you soon.
Thanks, Gus.
Yep,
That
for
was
sure.
fun.
And we will see you again on Friday on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, or you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time right here on the New Orleans Pelicans podcast